Hawkeyes, Cyclones. It's CyHawk week, and we're going to cross it over. A look at the Hawkeyes, a look at the Cyclones, maybe a little arguing. All today on this crossover edition of Locked On.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon. He's Nick Maravitz, and this is a crossover edition, Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Nick, a little bit different here today as we do things and break things down. We are your daily source, though, of both Hawkeye and Cyclone talk. You got the Cyclone side. I got the Hawkeye side. Appreciate you joining us here today. This episode of this crossover edition is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda Move and Be Moved. Nick, good to see you once again. Well, good to see you for the first time outside of when I'm watching you on the podcast. We've done some radio hits in the past, but good to catch up. How you been?
I've been great. It's good to finally meet face to face. You know, over the radio, just sitting in my car doesn't quite hit the same. So I'm glad to finally get to break this game down because I've been waiting all year since last game for this moment.
No doubt about it, as Iowa State looks to end the losing streak in Jack Trice Stadium. Iowa, on the other hand, looks to avenge last year's loss 2019 in Kinnick Stadium, where the Cyclones have now won two in a row. It's been a funky series. It's been a rivalry game that is exactly like you anticipate. It has been, you never know what's going to happen. There's been major upsets that have been pulled in this game. In fact, I want to start right there because for the first time, it really feels like the foot, it's flipped, right? We've had so many times in the past where we've seen Iowa State maybe struggling early in the season, and you anticipate that Iowa State's going to struggle again, and then they go and pull the upset. In fact, even last year, you know, that 21-3 win against North Dakota in week number 1 for the Cyclones, kind of ho-hum. Iowa cruised in the second half against Illinois State, and of course, we knew what happened in that one. Does it feel a little bit odd to you, Nick, just how it feels a little bit inversed in this rivalry matchup from what we're used to?
There is a piece of me that's like slightly concerned, you know, because it feels like too good to be true. I'm so used to being like the underdog, if you will. I think Iowa State is like around a 3-point favorite, so pretty much a pick 'em in this one, but still being on the favorite side, it's very odd. And I can see exactly why, especially after Iowa's showing last week, but more so from the Cyclone side. That does not mean, though, that I am not nervous because this, and I have said this 1,000 times, rivalry games, the playing field is level. There is so much emotional charge, especially in this rivalry, which I know Scott Docterman doesn't agree, but I think this is a top probably 20 rivalry in the entire nation. You just never know what's going to happen.
And we've seen that so many times in the past. For the Hawkeye fan side, I'll give you you can give a perspective on Iowa State, the way the season's gone. For Iowa, just my look, it's once again more of the same from a season ago and really the last 5 years. The struggles in the passing game, that was the big takeaway from week number 1. It wasn't the 300 yards passing. It wasn't 7 points given up. It was about the passing game once again and just how inept that they looked. And, you know, one thing that I said, Nick, is you can argue away in a non-conference game that you're going to dominate 44 yards passing the way that Iowa plays, but you can't do it looking like Mark Gronowski looked because it wasn't just the 44 yards. It was just how terrible he looked in the game and how much he struggled on some very simple throws. So for the Cyclone fans that maybe just don't check in a whole lot on Iowa, I'm sure most everybody does. There's your takeaway here. The Iowa passing game looks like crap once again.
Yeah, well, there was a couple clips that made it to my timeline of Mark Gronowski, and I was like, ooh, that one was rough. Oof, that one was also rough. And they happened to be, I believe, back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, oh, that is really unfortunate because the rest of the game did appear to go well for Iowa with, you know, over 300 yards on the ground. I think is something we can't ignore going into this week, and we'll touch on keys to the game later. But yeah, not a great start for Iowa. Iowa State, on the other hand, seems to have the ball rolling. And Mauser and Campbell, I believe, both touched. And I'm 99% sure Mauser was the only one. But either way, one of the two or both definitely touched on momentum going into this game, how they reset. It's hard to ignore what Iowa State is doing right now. Going over to Dublin and defeating a conference rival in the way that they did, and then coming back and defeating South Dakota 55-7, a team that a lot of people thought was going to give Iowa State trouble, obviously with travel and being one of the better FCS teams out there. Iowa State looks really good. Rocco Becht looks really good. Not something I think Iowa fans want to hear, because it does feel like it's usually Iowa State is in the other side of this whole thing. But no, it's a great time to be a Cyclone.
It really is. That 2-0 start. That takes me to another one. And we're so used to, in the Matt Campbell era, them getting off to slow starts. And until last season, that had been a major conversation piece about just how different that they looked. And because the season began a week earlier for Iowa State, the practice reps they were able to get leading into that game over in Ireland. Then you couple of it what they do. Kansas State didn't look very good. Jet lag, kind of things, where Iowa State did. But it really feels like all the components, all those little things that come up, and regardless of who you're a fan of, that seem to come up throughout the course of the year, a lot of those things have had their holes punched in them lately. The slow starts to the season, the special teams, it almost feels like now across the board, Matt Campbell, there's very few question marks about this program.
Oh, absolutely. I said last year, once Iowa State beat Miami, I thought, it's hard to really buy into the momentum for a bowl game just because it's an entirely different team and the games are, like 6 or 8 months apart. Like, is there really momentum there? The last year, I actually thought there was. I thought the way that they won that game, the way they fought through, obviously, Rocco and everything with the injury side of the linebackers and the tight ends and yada, yada, yada. I thought Iowa State got some momentum going into the off season. And this year, it seems to be that they kept it. It seems like they just took it, what they had last year, which was one of the, maybe the best season in Iowa State history, and they are running with it now. And I couldn't, obviously, offense, defense, special teams, it's hard to really evaluate Iowa against Iowa State. But right now, with what Flora is doing in the kick return and punt return game, I think Iowa State might have all three sides of this ball right now. And now, granted, they have an extra game. They have a little bit of a larger sample size, but it's hard not to pick Iowa State in all three for myself.
They have a lot of advantages, which is crazy to say. And that's another thing is we talked about the rivalry component. Rivalry upsets happen all the time, but I've been doing this on the radio for over 20 years now. So I definitely know the beats of this game, not just as a fan, but also trying to break it down and try to call it as close to down the middle as I can. It's very rare that I come into a game and have as many advantages on the Iowa State side that I do. Obviously, the quarterback position, huge advantage over there. Running back, I think you're arguing wide receiver. You definitely have to go Iowa State just because, well, Iowa wide receivers hasn't been a lot there. The tight end position, normally one that's always on the Iowa side. I argue not just the top one, the top two, the tight end room is an advantage for Iowa State. I'd give the Hawkeyes the edge at offensive line, but we're talking about 4 or 5 positions that go Iowa State's way. That's something that just so rarely happens from my perspective going into the game. And again, probably another one of those reasons that I think a lot of Cyclone fans are very optimistic about this one.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the argument at offensive line is an interesting one because I'm not necessarily arguing with you. I think it's almost a coin flip at the offensive line position. And I think it's pretty clear that the other ones are all Iowa State. So this is really an argument for, is it an Iowa State sweep or not? We've seen Rocco Becht evade like crazy in the pocket. So how much will it affect his passing? I don't know yet. I think he's got the capability to extend that play. And then you look at what Iowa State was able to do to Kansas State in the third, fourth quarter of that game once their cleats were able to actually stick into the mud. I mean, there is an argument where Iowa State's line can figure it out. Are they perfect? No. Is that one of my areas of concern? In relative terms, yeah, you could say that. But I do think that there is potential. The ceiling is there that they can figure this out and literally win out the entire offensive side, which when was the last time when was the last time that was said? Ever.
Mm-hmm. It's a rarity, no doubt. Now, Nick, we'll continue here on this crossover edition of Locked On. We'll take a look at the keys to the game. What's it going to take for both sides to pull out the victory? Got a couple of big spots for you. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit later on about our favorite CyHawk memories before we make our predictions. We continue on this crossover Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Hey, Hawkeye and Cyclone fans, are you still paying full price of gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited promo code football. It's going to get you an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code football for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code football. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda. The Mazda moving the game forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. Because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Big games this weekend on both sides. How about Rocco Becht? 19 of 20 throwing. Talk about a breakout performance from him, setting a Jack Trice record of what he did on that one. On the other side for the Hawkeyes, Xavier Williams has his debut, goes over 100 yards, the first time that's happened in Iowa history since Sean Green. Pretty good company to keep. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing their next great moment. When you follow that moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We continue on this crossover edition, Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Nick Maravets on the Cyclone side. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube on either side. Really helps us out. Gets Nick in front of more Cyclone fans, me in front of Hawkeye fans. And we are with you every single day here on the Locked On Network, your team every day. A big thank you to the everydayers out there that are with us each and every day. Nick, I think I found the key, the big key for Iowa if they are going to pull off this upset win. And we can go into the standard adages, right? Win the turnover battle. Yeah. We go back to the last two victories for Iowa in that building. Sebastian Castro 2 years ago, the pick six. Before that, Jack Campbell, the scoop and score that went in. Go 2 years before that. The punt returners running into each other. One of my favorite moments we'll get into a little bit later on.
I'm sure it is.
Turnovers are always a key to any football game, right? But I think I have something. Before we get to mine, though, I want to hear your key. If you had to only pick one thing, Iowa State's going to win the game, and they're going to win it because of this.
It's so tough to just pick one. It really is, because I think Iowa State does have a few areas where they it's like non-negotiable. For me, after the conversations I've had around this game, it's going to come down to, can Iowa State get pressure on Gronowski? I believe at this point, Iowa State is second worst in FBS at a 17.7% rush or pressure rate, ridiculously low. I understand the concept of dropping a ton of guys and rushing three. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But if you can get pressure on Gronowski and force Iowa to run the ball, I don't know if that is going to be enough for Iowa to win. I think that we can shut the run game down with our linebackers. And if you're getting pressure on Gronowski, when he has to throw, it's a recipe for disaster. Like, that is how I'm looking at this game. You're not going to completely stop the run, but if you can put kind of a little bit of a stunt on that, get the pressure on Gronowski when they have to throw, that to me, Iowa State's coming away with this win.
So the one thing that I looked at as I was going through all the different numbers, and one thing that I stumbled across, it hasn't happened very often this year, but Rocco has really struggled against pressure. Now, every quarterback struggles against pressure, right? The gap between when you're in a clean pocket and when pressure is there is always significant for everyone, but I think it was even more significant for Rocco. But taking it a step further, Rocco Becht has been outstanding against the blitz this year. 3 touchdowns of his 5 have come with a blitz package. So to me, it is not as simple as getting pressure on him, because you can get pressure on him, he gets it away, you're going to be in trouble. It has to be Iowa's front four that
Mm,
generates that pressure. And that means Max Llewellyn needs to get there. Ethan Hurkett needs to get there. The deep stable that they have in that defensive line. Aaron Graves, though he's a defensive tackle, he's been outstanding both for tackles and loss of getting there. So if I was going to win this game, I believe that they're going to have to do it with pressure, not just pressure with the front four. That I think can change the complexion of this game, and then being able to obviously cover in the back end, because Iowa has questions in that back end. They have questions in the defensive backfield that they normally don't. We saw it show up last year in Kinnick Stadium with the 75-yard touchdown from
mm,
Jalen Null. And a lot of those still haven't been answered. Xavier Wampa didn't show much in game number one. The cornerbacks are still incredibly green. TJ Hall, he was targeted 3 different times on the Albany drive that led to their only touchdown of the football game. So you have the questions back there. Then if you have to bring extra people in order to get that pressure, I
mm.
think Iowa's going to be in trouble. So to simple it down to kind of one major thing, that's the biggest one to me.
Yeah, I think that I see exactly what you're saying, and I think that makes complete sense. And I'm going to pretty much say that it's the same thing for Iowa State, but I'm okay with them bringing pressure. I'm totally okay with them bringing extra guys to get there, because I think that the corners are going to be able to hang on for just long enough. Now, I'm going to flip it the other way. I've got a question for you as far as Iowa State's tight ends. That's kind of been the offensive attack for Iowa State this year. We haven't really gotten a ton of answers at wide receiver. I believe Iowa State is running the 12 personnel more than Iowa is right now, which is kind of crazy. Not something we see a whole lot of. Is that going to cause a problem for Iowa in this one? Is it maybe too much what they're used to? Like, is this like, oh wait, are we in practice? I'm confused because this is not Iowa State football.
It's going to be interesting because that's another component. Is Iowa really young in the middle? And Jaden Harrell, though he's been around for a long time, a fifth-year senior, this is his first time as a starter at the middle linebacker spot. And I mentioned earlier, Jack Campbell, the big play that he made 4 years ago in that building. Then Jay Higgins the last 2 years, culminating being an All-American last season. Iowa's middle linebacker play has been at an elite level. Jaden Harrell's had 2 opportunities now. He came into the game against UCLA. He wasn't very good. I didn't think he was very good against Albany on Saturday. And all of a sudden, if you're asking him out there to not only get everybody in the right spots and doing it in just his second career start, but then you take it a step further and you're asking him to cover Bramer at 6'7" and the athleticism that he has. Gabe Burkle has been an absolute eye-opener of what he is. And then you go even deeper than that at that tight end position. Now, we're not going to go too crazy here and start calling Iowa State tight end U, because that's laughable. But what we are going to say is for this year, I think the advantage is there, not just in terms of what they have in that room, but also those question marks. I mentioned Wampa. You look at Zach Lutmer. He's very young in his career. There's a lot of green in the Iowa back seven, and because of that, I think the advantage is certainly going to be there on the perspective for Iowa State. So we, again, flip the script in this rivalry game.
Yeah, I think the Iowa State's depth at tight end is maybe their biggest weapon in this. I'm not going to say biggest key, but Iowa State has the ability now to come out in 13 or 14 personnel and keep Iowa guessing. Are we going to run? You would think so. In 14 personnel, that seems like the only logical answer. Wrong. Look out for Burkle, and there's Alexander on the flag. Like that could very well happen in a game like this. Seems like we're splitting those tight ends into wideouts. Like, we have skill at the tight end position like we never have before, and it's really exciting to see how they're kind of getting creative and using it. That is a huge piece, not the key, because I think that that's like a given. I don't give keys to the given side of it. I think that's a huge piece, though, in this one, and it's where I think the edge lies on Iowa State's side.
Nick, another direction I want to go with you is we're talking about the offenses and the defenses. Special teams pretty much every year, regardless of opponent, Iowa has a huge advantage in special
Absolutely.
teams. And until maybe last year, Iowa against Iowa State always had what felt like a pretty major advantage in special teams. It's not just a specialist. It's not Torrey Taylor before, now Reese Dakin, what you have in the kicking game and how Iowa's been great going back to Nate Kading at the kicker position. But it's also the return game. It's the coverage. It's all those other components that made Iowa so good in special teams. Well, normally that wasn't the case for Iowa State. And I asked the question to Matt Campbell myself. Why don't you have a dedicated special teams coach? He got upset about it. However, here we are. And it feels like now the last 2 years, they have dedicated more time, more resources. They have a specialist, a kicker specialist as one of their analysts, that they have definitely buttoned up their special teams.
Absolutely. I don't know exactly what's going on with Flora. I'm not too tied in to know that the second punt return against South Dakota looked like something happened, and Campbell kind of said, like, it's not that big a deal yet, and we never really got another word on it. So I really hope Flora is in this game, because I think if Flora's in, he's just as good as Weegan. And I know I've talked about this before. I don't know if you know this. Weegan and I graduated in the same class at Williamsburg High. That kid is insane. He can blow a game wide open. Like, and you obviously, all the Hawkeye fans out there have seen this. I was on the sideline for some of this. What he is capable of doing, Iowa State cannot kick to him. That being said, I think it can go Iowa State's way if Flora is on the field. I think the way that they are using him and his speed, he's a track star. I mean, the kid, if he's able to get the ball, his hands on the ball, that could be a place where Iowa State opens it up. But I think across the board, Iowa State just can't kill themselves on special teams, because I know that you're going to bring this up. And every time Iowa State is on special teams, I hold my breath. Like, we can't kill ourselves there. I think offense and defense are too good.
I really believe also if I was going to win this game, they have to win special teams. It has to be some kind of advantage. And maybe that's Drew Stevens with 3 field goals, including a 50-plus yarder, something like that. I don't think Iowa can play to a standstill in the special teams and win this game just playing straight up offense, defense against Iowa State. They're going to have to be special there. And that leads us back to our favorite memories. So, Nick, let's get into that. I know yours are going to be much different than mine. We're going to come back here on this crossover edition. We're going to talk about some of our favorite CyHawk memories. And then it is prediction time as we count down to kick off with the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones. It's a crossover edition of Locked On Hawkeyes and Locked On Cyclones. Well, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVPs on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. First, for the Hawkeyes, let's take a look at Xavier Williams. Over 100 yards rushing. He was outstanding in the game and maybe going to be a big piece of what he's going to be doing coming up this weekend. When the pressure was on, he had no hesitation, no delay. He was ready to go. For the Cyclone side, how about Kyle Conrarty? A 63-yard field goal. We were talking about special teams, and that definitely was one of them. Williams for the Hawkeyes, Conrarty for the Cyclones. They are on a streak. And just like they delivered for the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo good through November 18th. Trent and Nick back with you one final time on the crossover edition. Locked On Cyclones for the Nick side and Locked On Hawkeyes over here on my side. Nick, as we put a cap on things, I got a couple of years on you. Well, I got a lot of years in you. So, Nick, I am in my mid-40s. My first memories of this game were completely different, I'm sure, than yours. I remember the domination. I remember the Hayden Fry era. And I knew nothing outside of Iowa victories until my freshman year at Iowa, when Iowa loses 27-9 to Iowa State. So maybe I was a bad luck charm was happening in that one, but that was my freshman year back in 1998 when the streak came to an end. There's been a lot of positive ones. I've been poking a little fun at the punt team coming together after the long delay. That one was tremendous. Ashton Kutcher, pick of the Hawkeyes, and with game day there. There's been some good ones over there, but I've been throwing a little shade your way, Nick. Give me some of your favorite memories.
Well, I think by far the best one was last season. I was actually out on the East Coast all by myself. No Iowa State fans within miles, I'm sure. And when that kick went through, I'm pretty sure Ames, Iowa heard me. I lost my mind. And I rewatched that highlight tape so many times. Like, there was no way Iowa State was going to win that game with, a couple minutes to go, and somehow they got it done. So that one was super electric. Going up through high school, it was Iowa all day, every day. So when they won it in 22, that was really cool. That one was I had buddies that were in, kind of across enemy lines, really letting them hear it. I was not personally there, although I would have loved to have been. But I think, this isn't your question that I'm answering here, but I'm excited for this rivalry over the next 5 years, because I do think that in the next 5-10 years, we're going to get more competitive games. We're going to get kind of a more 50-50 split across the grid, as opposed to Iowa winning 6-8 in a row. I think Iowa State's becoming a much more competent program. Now, how will that stick around with NIL and transfer portal and blah, blah, blah? We're not really having that conversation, but I do think Iowa State's in a much better spot than they were, just even 10 years ago.
And taking that a step further, Nick, I mean, you look towards the future. We don't know how much longer this rivalry is going to go, because
Yeah.
the contract has not been extended. We've heard rumblings on both sides of the equation that it might not continue, and it'd be a bad thing for college football. It'd certainly be a bad thing, I think, for the state. And we don't know what the future is going to look like. That's an off-season topic, though, right? We're going to leave
Yes.
that one alone here for today, because we
You
got
me feeling
yeah,
down. This is the week. We're ready to go.
And so let's enjoy the week as it is. Let's get into the predictions, and let's start with you, Nick. What you think, how this thing's going to play out? Break it down for us.
It's tough. I'm torn between two scenarios. Iowa State wins at 50-3, or hear me out, this one is a little more realistic. I think this game could be 60, 70 plus points across the board. I understand that nobody thinks that is what's going to happen. Traditionally, that is not the case. This is a very low scoring affair. But if hypothetically speaking, which now more than ever, this is a true hypothetical, if Mark Gronowski is able to figure it out and throw the ball, or more realistically, if Iowa can run the ball, I think that both defenses are going to struggle in this one. I think Iowa State's going to score a lot of points. And if Iowa can hold, with them, I could see a final of like 41-47 or something weird, where it's like a high scoring, but still really, really tight the whole way. Is that a super realistic prediction? No. But is it more fun? Yeah.
A little scoring, yeah. It takes us back to the last time that Iowa State won in Jack Trice, 44-41, the triple overtime thriller, and what a game that was in Jack Trice as that one came to the end. Speaking of past performances in Jack Trice, for whatever reason, my mind has been drifting back quite a ways back, and it was back to 2005 when Drew Tate and the top 10 Iowa team came into the building and just got absolutely floored. Tate got knocked out of the game. Iowa could get absolutely nothing going. I don't think offensively the Hawkeyes are going to be as bad as they were in that one, but I believe for the first time since that game that Iowa State's going to win a game here by more than a field goal. Remember, all those victories in the last 20 years have come by 3 points or less. I think that changes this weekend. I think Iowa State, Rocco, is able to do enough. I don't know if Iowa's able to play a clean game in this one. And they've had so many breaks in this game, so many things that have gone their way, certainly when they played the game in Ames. I believe it goes the other way here. Iowa State forces 2 turnovers in the game, and they pull it out. 23-17 is my prediction. I'm on the underside, though, over at FanDuel. 42.5 is the number. I'm on the under, but I'm taking the Cyclones to win and cover.
Gosh, I feel like we've won already. We're already beating down the Iowa fans. Like, get ready for what's coming this weekend. I do have a question for you, because this is something that gets thrown around a lot, and I put some value into this. I think a lot of football purists might not, but do you put anything into the fanfare that's happening this weekend? Game day, Barstool's going to be there, Pate's going to be there, or I guess not game day, it's a big new kickoff, but you get my point. This Ames is already buzzing, and on Saturday, I don't know if it's going to be able to take it. Like, can that play a role in this one? Because we've seen the home team struggle. Not to say that this is something Iowa State will struggle with. I'm just purely wondering, do you put any value into that?
I go back to 4 years ago, and it felt like it was almost too much. Everybody was picking Iowa State, outside of Lee Corso, on that day. They were a favorite in that game, something that is a rarity, much like this year. But it almost felt like it was too much too soon. And now, with Iowa State and the program that Matt Campbell has built, he's gone through all the pomp and circumstance that we're going to see this weekend. And as we saw a couple of weeks ago in Ireland, the way they bounced back last week when Kansas State didn't bounce back, I think there's a lot of things to say that I think they're going to handle the hype a lot better than they did 4 years ago. So it's going to be great for the fans and for all the fans out there. But the actual football team, I think that the hype is going to fall to the side, that it's not going to be as a big deal. And for Iowa State, I think that's going to help them a lot come Saturday.
Absolutely. And we touched on it a little bit, but just to kind of cap your point off, I think it's the veteranship, or
Yeah.
is that even a word? The veteran leadership
Works for
of,
us.
yeah, it will combine the words of Iowa State. We haven't seen a ton of this. We have in the past, but the way that Campbell has shaped this program, what Rocco's doing, the across the board, John Tez on the defensive side, like this could be the year for Iowa State.
Nick, it's been fun. We have made our predictions for the game. Should be a great one. 11 a.m. Central Time kickoff. Big noon will be there. Portnoy and the rest of the crew. And yes, Jamie Pollard says he will be allowed inside
Yeah.
Jack Trice Stadium, which was a good one earlier today. Crossover, make sure you're subscribed and following both Nick over on Locked On Cyclones and myself, Locked On Hawkeyes, as we are with you each and every day. Your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We will talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks!
Roll clones, baby.